She cheated on me with my best friend, then stole $200, $0 from my family's inheritance to pay for her divorce. Now she's suing me for half the house I built with my own sweat after I found out she was sleeping with the lawyer I hired for the court battle. I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here I am. You know those moments in life that seem small at first but turn out to be the start of everything falling apart? Yeah, this was one of those. It all started with a gut feeling, a little nagging voice that I kept ignoring because I didn't want to believe what it was telling me. But then things started to change, subtle at first, then painfully obvious. Her name. We'd been married for 7 years, built a life together, or so I thought. We had a nice house, good jobs, a couple of kids, and I thought everything was fine. She was bitchy, sure, always snapping at me about the smallest things, but I chalked it up to stress or her period or whatever. She could be manipulative, yeah, but I figured that was just her personality. She liked to lie too, but I'd learned to deal with it over the years. The first sign something was wrong was her sudden obsession with her phone. She'd hide it behind her back or slip away to the bathroom with it. I'd catch her texting late at night, sometimes for hours. She'd say she was talking to her sister or some friend, but I knew better. I'd see her delete messages, clear her browsing history, and even change her password on her phone. That was weird because she'd always been pretty careless about privacy before. Then came the money. Our finances were always solid enough, but suddenly she was spending more than usual. Designer bags, expensive dinners, trips she never mentioned in advance. I even found a receipt for a $5, $0 jewelry purchase she claimed she'd lost and forgotten about. That kind of spending wasn't normal for her, especially without telling me. I started to ask questions, but she would brush me off with a snarky comment, say I was paranoid, or accuse me of not trusting her. The real kicker was the day I found out she was cheating. I didn't catch her in the act, at least not directly, but it was a series of small things that added up. I noticed her phone was missing more often, and when I finally looked through her messages, I saw conversations that made my stomach turn. Flirty texts, suggestive photos. Then I found out she'd been seeing someone, a lawyer no less, who was representing us in the divorce she'd been planning behind my back. That's right. She was sleeping with the guy who was supposed to help us get through our problems. I was stunned. I mean, I knew she was manipulative, but it was like a punch in the gut. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. She'd lied to me for months, maybe longer. All those nights she claimed to be working late, she was with him. And I found out she'd been funneling money, about $200, $0 from my family's inheritance, into her own accounts to pay for her divorce. She stole from my family, my parents, to fund her affair and her escape plan. I confronted her that night. I was angry, trembling with rage and heartbreak. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, and about everything. Her response: she looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I had no proof. She everything called me paranoid and possessive. She even had the nerve to say that I was overreacting, that she was just stressed, that she loved me but needed her space. But I knew. I knew she'd been lying, cheating, stealing, and planning her escape. That moment changed everything. I looked at her and I saw a different person, someone I didn't recognize. The woman I thought I knew was a lie. I felt a mix of heartbreak, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal. I wondered how I could have been so blind, how I missed all the signs. I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare and I didn't know how to wake up. I wanted to scream, cry, do something to make it all stop, but I just stood there, speechless, staring at her as she continued to deny everything, her face cold and dismissive. That's when I realized I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep pretending everything was. I knew I had to find out the truth, confront her head-on, and decide what I was going to do next. But honestly, I felt lost. I had no idea how deep her lies went, how much damage she'd already caused. And I knew that once I started digging, there would be no going back. This was just the beginning of a nightmare I never expected to face. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. The betrayal was like a knife twisting in my chest every time I thought about it. I kept replaying the moments, her sneaking around, the texts, the money. It was like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. I knew I had to get to the bottom of it no matter what. The next morning, I started digging through her things when she wasn't around. I found her laptop, and that's where the real shit hit the fan. I was careful. I didn't want her to know I was snooping, but I needed answers. I hacked into her email account, which she'd stupidly left logged in on her browser. I found a flood of emails and messages that confirmed everything I suspected. She'd been having sex with the lawyer for months, probably before she even told me she wanted a divorce. The lawyer, a guy named Mark, was supposed to be helping us settle things peacefully. Instead, he was screwing my wife literally. There were messages where she bragged about how good Mark made her feel, how she was finally free of that boring old husband, and how she was going to start a new life with him. I saw plans to leave the house, to split the money, and even flirtatious messages where she called him her favorite. It was sickening. I also found out she'd been lying about her spending. Turns out she drained not just the inheritance money but also a lot of our savings, all to fund her affair and her divorce. I was furious but also devastated. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I'd spent years building that house, working my ass off to give us a good life. And all that effort. She was sleeping with the guy who was supposed to be helping us. I kept thinking about the nights I'd come home late, thinking she was just stressed or tired. Turns out she had a whole secret life. I wanted to scream at her, but I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to process everything. The thing that really got me was the way she lied about everything. That bitch was a master manipulator. When I confronted her with the emails and messages, she didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she spun some bullshit about how she was confused, and that Mark was just a friend, that it was all innocent. Yeah, right. She told me I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that I didn't understand her needs. The audacity. She said she loved me, but her actions said otherwise. She was sleeping around, stealing from my family, and planning to walk away with half of everything I'd worked for. I felt like I was losing my mind. The woman I loved, the woman I'd trusted, was nothing but a liar and a thief. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. It was like my entire world was crumbling. I didn't know whether to cry, rage, or just walk away and forget the whole thing. But I knew I couldn't just let her get away with it. I had to do something. I started to think about revenge, about how I could make her pay for what she'd done. Not just with money, but with her reputation. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling. Betrayal, humiliation, loss. I decided I would fight fire with fire. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my house, my savings, or my dignity. I started gathering evidence, planning how to expose her in court and how to reclaim what was ours. I knew she'd try to spin things her way, lie her way out of it, but I had enough proof now to blow her whole story apart. I also knew I had to be smart about it. She was manipulative, and she'd probably try to turn the kids against me if she could. I wasn't going to let that happen, so I kept digging. I hired a private investigator to follow her, just to see if she was hiding anything else. I wanted to know if she was seeing Mark or anyone else besides him. Turns out she was, and that's when I uncovered even more. She'd been using the money I thought was safe, the inheritance, to buy herself a new apartment, a new life. She'd already started planning her escape, and I was just a pawn in her game. That realization made me more determined than ever. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. By now, I was angry, yes, but also hurt. Deep down, I'd always believed in honesty, in loyalty. And now I saw that all of that was gone. She lied to me, cheated on me, stolen from my family, and was planning to leave me with nothing. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her take everything I'd built with my own sweat. I had to protect what was mine, and I had to do it before she completely destroyed me. The next step was clear. I had to confront her again, but this time armed with undeniable proof. I was ready for that. I was ready to fight for my house, for my reputation, and for my dignity. I just didn't know how much more pain I could take before I snapped. But one thing was certain, this wasn't over, not by a long shot. After gathering all the evidence, I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for her to make her next move. I had to be proactive, strategic. The first thing I did was talk to a lawyer, a real one, not the shady guy she'd been using, and laid everything out. I wanted to know my legal options, how much of the house I could claim, and what I could do about her stealing from my family's inheritance. When I explained the situation, the lawyer's face got serious. She told me I had a strong case for both the financial theft and for asserting my rights to the house. That was a huge relief, honestly. Up until then, I'd been feeling like I was just spiraling into chaos. Now I had a plan. I decided I'd file for divorce, but not just any divorce. I wanted to fight for everything I deserved. I'd also have to confront her about the affair directly, which I knew would be a nightmare. But I was done playing nice. She crossed every line, and I was ready to expose her for the lying, cheating, manipulative bitch she'd become. The next step was confronting her again, face to face. I set up a meeting at a neutral place, a lawyer's office, so I could lay everything out calmly and make her understand I wasn't backing down. When she showed up, she tried her usual attitude, bitchy, dismissive, acting like I was overreacting. She said I was making a mountain out of a molehill, that I was paranoid, that she loved me and was just stressed. I looked her in the eyes and laid out all the evidence I had, the emails, the messages, the financial records. Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought she might crack. But then she snapped. She started lying again, spinning stories about how I was jealous, how I didn't trust her, how she was just trying to keep the family together. She claimed she never slept with Mark, that it was all a misunderstanding, that I was just being overly suspicious. I didn't buy it. I told her I had enough proof to take her to court, and I'd do just that if she didn't start telling the truth. That's when she got angry, started yelling, calling me controlling and insecure. She said I was ruining her life, that I was a terrible husband for even doubting her. Honestly, it hurt more than I expected. To see her so angry, so dismissive, like I was the villain in this story, it cut deep. I'd always tried to be a good husband, even when she was bitchy and manipulative, but now I saw that I'd been blind to just how much she hated me. She was ready to burn everything down just to get what she wanted. I realized then that this wasn't a fight I could win by just arguing. I had to be smart, cold even. I wanted her out of my life, out of my house, and out of my future. I decided I'd file for an emergency separation. I couldn't have her living under my roof while she was screwing my lawyer, stealing from my family, and planning to leave me. I found a way to get her out, and I did it quickly. I brought in the police to serve her the divorce papers, and she was furious. She screamed, cursed, called me every name in the book, but I stood firm. I knew I was doing the right thing, even if it hurt like hell. Once she was gone, I started moving forward with the legal process. I also hired a private investigator to follow her, just to make sure she wasn't planning anything else. Turns out, she was trying to hide her new apartment, her new bank accounts, everything. I found out she'd been lying about her whereabouts, and I had proof that she was trying to run away with the money she stole, possibly even with Mark. That realization made my blood boil. She'd taken my trust, my money, and almost my house, and now she was trying to run from the consequences. Meanwhile, I was left picking up the pieces. The house I built with my own sweat was now in dispute. She's claiming half of it because she says she's entitled to half the marriage. But I know she's just trying to squeeze me for everything she can get. I've got lawyers telling me I have a solid case, but I also know she's going to fight dirty. She's a manipulative bitch, and she's not going down without a fight. The emotional is brutal. One day I'm furious, the next I'm just numb. I keep thinking about all the years I wasted trying to make this work, all the trust I gave her and how she repaid me by screwing everyone over. I've never felt so betrayed in my life. But at the same time, I feel a strange sense of relief. The nightmare is slowly unraveling, and I know that eventually I'll be free from her claws. I just have to hold on, stay strong, and keep fighting for what's mine. The legal battle has become a full-time nightmare. I never imagined dealing with such a tangled mess of lies, deceit, and betrayal. Every time I think I've got a handle on things, she throws another curveball. She's hired her own lawyer, some high-priced, manipulative shark who specializes in turning cases around. They're claiming I'm the one at fault, that I've been abusive, controlling, and that I don't deserve a dime of the house I built. It's all part of her game, trying to paint herself as the victim, even after everything she's done. Meanwhile, I've been pouring money into lawyers, forensic accountants, and private investigators. The house, the inheritance, the affair, it's all a mess, and she's fighting tooth and nail to keep what she thinks is hers. But I've got enough evidence now to prove she's been lying about everything. The emails, the bank statements, the witnesses. I even have testimony from the private investigator about her secret meetings with Mark, the lawyer she's been sleeping with. It's ugly, but I know I have a strong case. The emotional toll is brutal. Every day feels like a battle. I wake up feeling angry, then numb, then hopeless. I can't believe I trusted her for so long. I keep replaying every moment, the nights I stayed up late working, the weekends I thought she was just stressed, the quiet conversations I thought meant something. All lies. She was planning her escape the entire time. I feel like I've been played for a fool, and I hate myself for not seeing it sooner. The house, the one I poured my soul into, is now in limbo. She's claiming half of it because she says she contributed to its value. That's her argument. She's entitled to a share because she was married to me during the construction, even though I was the one working every day, paying the bills, fixing the roof, laying the foundation. She's trying to manipulate the court, but I've got photos, receipts, and witnesses that say otherwise. I need to make sure I keep what's mine because I know she's going to try to bleed me dry. And then there's the money stolen from my family's inheritance. I found out she transferred over $200, $0 into her accounts, claiming she needed it for lawyer fees or divorce expenses. But I know the truth. She was funneling it into her own accounts, buying herself a new apartment, paying off her mistress, Mark. It's infuriating. That money was meant for my parents' retirement, for my kids' education, and she took it all to fund her betrayal. I've got the bank statements, the wire transfers, the proof. But it's going to be a long fight to get it back, and I don't trust her to do the right thing. Throughout all this, I've been trying to stay sane. I've cut contact with her as much as possible, but that's hard. She keeps trying to contact me, sending her fake apologies, trying to manipulate me into changing my mind. She's good at it. She's always been good at twisting things around, but I see through her now. I see her for what she is, a selfish, manipulative bitch who will do anything to save herself, even if it means destroying everything else. The worst part is the emotional damage. I feel used, betrayed, and humiliated. I can't count how many nights I've cried myself to sleep, wishing I could turn back the clock. But I also know I have to be strong for myself and for the kids. I can't let her win. I won't let her take everything I've worked for. I'm slowly rebuilding my sense of self, piece by piece, and figuring out what's next. One thing I've realized is that trust is a fragile thing. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I trusted her with my life, my future, my everything. And she betrayed me in the worst way. But I also learned that I have to protect myself, stand up for what's right, and never let anyone manipulate me again. I've gone from feeling like a victim to someone who's fighting back. It's a long road, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger, even if it's just so I can look in the mirror and say I did everything I could. The legal process drags on, and every day feels like a new battle. She's pulling every trick in the book, filing false claims, trying to get custody of the kids under flimsy pretenses, even accusing me of abuse I never committed. It's all part of her strategy to sway the court and keep me from getting what I deserve. I've got my lawyers working overtime, compiling evidence and preparing to counter her lies. But even with all that, the stress is overwhelming. Meanwhile, I've started to realize just how deep her betrayal runs. I found out she's been secretly meeting with Mark, the lawyer, even after the divorce papers were served. They've been planning to run away together, I'm sure of it. She's been transferring more money, hiding assets, and trying to make it look like I'm the problem. I've caught her in so many lies now, it's like she's a different person. The woman I married turned out to be a manipulative, money-hungry liar who would do anything to save herself. I can't help but feel angry every time I think about what she's done to me and my family. The inheritance she stole from my parents that was supposed to be for their retirement, for the kids' future, gone because she's a selfish bitch. I keep asking myself how I didn't see it sooner, how I missed the signs. I was so blinded by love and trust that I ignored all the red flags. Now I'm paying the price. The house, which I built with my own sweat and tears, is now in the middle of a legal tug-of-war. She claims she contributed to the work, that she helped decorate and make it a home. But the truth is, I was the one physically building it, paying for everything and managing the mortgage. Still, she's trying to spin it as her property, saying she's entitled to half. I've hired experts to evaluate the house, and the evidence clearly shows I'm the primary owner. But her lawyer is relentless, trying to claim she has contributions that warrant a stake. The emotional toll is worse than the legal battle. I wake up every morning feeling exhausted, yet anxious. I see her face in my mind's eye, the way she used to smile and lie at the same time. I wonder if I'll ever trust again or if I'll just become a shell of a man. Every day I try to focus on what's real, my kids, my future, my own sanity. But the betrayal cuts so deep. It's like a wound that keeps bleeding, no matter how much I try to bandage it. I've also started to work with a therapist. It's helping me process everything, even if it's painful. I realize I've been holding in so much anger, frustration, and sadness that it's starting to eat me alive. Talking about it helps, even if I still feel the sting of her lies. I've learned that I can't control her actions, but I can control how I respond. That's what keeps me going, knowing I have the strength to fight for my rights, my house, and my peace. The worst part is the feeling of betrayal from someone I loved and trusted. I thought we were in this together, that we were building a life for our kids. But she turned out to be someone else entirely, selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own benefit. It's a hard lesson, but I've learned that I have to be more cautious, more guarded. Trust is earned, not given blindly. As I sit here writing all this out, I realize I've come to a crossroads. I can let her continue to manipulate and control, or I can stand my ground and fight for what's rightfully mine. I know the court battles will be long and exhausting, but I also know I have the truth on my side. I just want this nightmare to end. I want to reclaim my house, my dignity, and finally start healing from this betrayal. But I also know that it's going to take time, patience, and a lot of strength. I've got a long road ahead, but I'm determined not to let her win. Not this time. Looking back now, I realize how much this has changed me. I used to think trust was the foundation of everything: marriage, friendship, life itself. Turns out, trusting blindly is a recipe for disaster. I learned the hard way that people can hide their true selves behind a mask for years, and once that mask slips, it's almost impossible to go back. The betrayal cut so deep that I thought I'd never recover, but somehow I'm still standing. The court case is finally coming to a head. My lawyers have presented all the evidence: the emails, bank statements, witness testimonies, and valuation reports. Her lawyer's tricks fell flat because the truth was on my side. The judge saw through her manipulations and ruled in my favor. I kept the house. The inheritance was ordered to be returned, and she was held accountable for her theft. It was a long, exhausting fight, but I felt a strange sense of relief when I finally got the verdict. It wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about reclaiming my life from her lies. The aftermath has been a whirlwind. She's been ordered to pay back the stolen inheritance, and I've been working to rebuild what I lost, financially, emotionally, and mentally. I've moved out of the house into a new place where I can breathe again. The kids are with me most of the time now, and we're slowly trying to put the pieces back together. It's not easy, and some days are worse than others, but I remind myself that I survived the worst betrayal I've ever known. I've learned a lot through this process. Trust is fragile, and I'll never give it away so easily again. I've also learned that some people's true colors only come out when they think they're about to lose everything. She proved to me that she was only out for herself, a manipulative, selfish woman who would do anything to save her own skin. That realization stings, but it also frees me. I don't have to carry her lies anymore. I can finally focus on my own future. What I want to say to anyone reading this is, never ignore the red flags. Don't dismiss your gut feelings just because you want things to work or because you love someone. Betrayal can come in many forms, and sometimes it's hidden behind a pretty face or a convincing lie. Protect yourself, keep evidence if you need to, and don't be afraid to stand up for what's right. The pain of betrayal is brutal, but it's also an awakening. It teaches you who you really are: resilient, capable, and stronger than you think. I'm not the same man I was before all this happened. I've been broken, yes, but I've also been rebuilt. I know now that I can survive even the worst kind of betrayal. I can rebuild trust in myself and I can move forward. The house is paid off, my kids are safe, and I'm finally starting to feel like I'm reclaiming my life. It's been a dark journey, but I've come out the other side with a clearer mind and a stronger heart. If there's one thing I want anyone going through something similar to remember, it's this: don't give up. Trust is earned, and sometimes you have to fight to protect what's yours. But in the end, the truth will out. Justice might be slow, but it's worth fighting for. I hope my story warns others to be cautious, to listen to their instincts, and to never let anyone betray them without consequence. Because in the end, the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. And I've learned that lesson the hard way.